The mockery.
Denmark will shoot first and ask questions later.
The Home Ministry needs to take an action.
Tariffs and economic sanctions. Welcome to the evening show by The Explicit. President Trump warned and promised that he would shoot at Iran if the Iranian security services attacked the protesters. And a few hours later, the White House also confirmed that the Trump is now considering using military action against Iran. However, the scenario has taken a complete U-turn here now, as President Trump is receiving conflicting advice about the potential effectiveness of a US intervention. In addition to this, as per the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, there have been no military placements or movements by the US in many of its Middle East close partners, including Qatar, are restraining the move. So you see, the Middle East has certain duties to oblige as a part of their Muslim Brotherhood. And the US may have fueled this protest first, and then now it is restricting itself, further emphasizing on the fact that the US cannot be trusted at all. So far, around 2,000 people, including the security personnel, have been killed in these deadly protests. Since the unrest was sparked by the fragile economic conditions and rising inflation, these protests intensified the international pressure after Israel and the US strikes, as per an Iranian official. However, the protesters have been demanding not only to eradicate the current Iranian leader and regime, but even Islam from the country. According to them, Persia was never the part of the Islam historically. In these events of unrest, several EU countries, including Spain, Finland, and Belgium, have summoned the Iranian ambassador amid the violent crackdown on the protesters. Several EU leaders have stopped recalling ambassadors and have stepped up calls for sanctions following Iran's repression. Belgium has been urging to discuss new EU sanctions, while the Dutch foreign minister is keen to designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Now, starkening these moves, the European Parliament President Roberta Metsola banned the Iranian diplomats from entering the parliament. The chamber has listed the IRGC as a terrorist group since 2022, and the EU is looking for new kinds of sanctions now for the country. But wait, it's not over yet. President Trump has issued a new kind of tariff, a 25% tariff on every country that is doing business with Iran. With an already tumbling economy, these tariffs can worsen the economic condition of the country. The key partners of Iran includes its neighboring states, as well as some larger economies including India, Turkey, and China. But the most impacted country will be China, as Iran exports fuel to the country, and in 2022 itself, these exports amounted to $22 billion, according to the World Bank. In 2025, China bought more than 80% of the Iran's shipped oil. Even if the US sanctions cut off the funding of Tehran's nuclear program, Iran had buyers for its oil. With India, Iran stood at $1.34 billion in 2025, and the major Indian exports to Iran include basmati rice, fruits, vegetables, drugs, and other pharmaceutical products. There might not be any serious effect on India this time due to these sanctions, because it stopped trades with Iran in 2019 also, when the US pushed tariffs. But there is one major concern here: the Chabahar port, a strategic port that India uses to gain land access to Central Asia and Afghanistan, instead of relying on Pakistan trade routes. Since we are talking about tariffs and trade deals, you might find one thing interesting here. The conversations between US and India on trade deals are now back on the track. The new US-India ambassador, Sergio Gore, has confirmed that they are actively engaging on the trade issues, and the next rounds of the talks were expected on January 13. In this series of events, Gore further stated that India will be invited to join the US-led Paxilica, a group of nations for the country's growing role in global technology. Now, this comes when a few days back, the White House stated that the deal is not happening because PM Modi apparently didn't call President Trump, which Delhi denied, of course. And it further comes when the EU and India free trade deal isn't just good progress. Now that the US has complicated its relationship with the EU and India both, it is worth seeing how it would improve their trade relations. Talking of the relations after President Trump has insisted conveniently again and again that Greenland needs to be brought under US control for security purposes, NATO and the Greenland government have started working on strengthening the defense of the region so that the US doesn't annex the land. With this, Denmark has clarified their stance that Greenland is not for sale and it would be an integral part of Europe. That completes my segment here.
The US and Taiwan are in proximity to finalize their trade deal. And similar to the investments approach by South Korea and Japan, the Trump administration eyes TSMC, the semiconductor foundry of the island nation. If TSMC invests in chip making on US soil, the tariffs for Taiwan can be reduced to 15%. Now, we don't have any answers from the White House, Taipei, or TSMC, but here's the backstory. TSMC has been working with the US government for quite some time now, and even the Biden administration wanted to build a semiconductor plant in America. But as per a report in 2023, the Arizona plant faced challenges after TSMC was not able to find skilled labor on American soil, further delaying its unit to Q3 of this year. It doesn't surprise me, to be honest. The president of this country literally has an English to English translator. Either he is similar to other American leaders who he has previously remarked as dumb, or he saved some amount after the Oval Office redecor. Whatever the story is, the current administration expects at least 4 chip manufacturing facilities in Arizona, alongside the current commitments of TSMC. This will escalate the company's investments by about $100 billion. I have a question for the USA. Where are you planning to get these extra skilled labor from if you want Americans to be employed? I guess your department understands this, and that's why they convinced you not to freeze H-1B visas for the skilled. TSMC has always been a plan of yours. The next question is for Taiwan. Do you think that by giving America what it has so long desired, probably the only thing they desire from you, your country will have their full support against any aggression from China? Haven't you learned from others' mistakes, or the easiest one, the recent statement of Donald Trump on Xi Jinping? The story doesn't end here. TSMC is also working with India even after it declined the government's offer to open a plant in collaboration with Tata, and this collaboration is seen as improving ties between the two countries. And China is at unrest, clearly exemplified by the remarks of its Foreign Minister Wang Yi in August 2025 when he visited India. Shifting our conversation trajectory to Xi Jinping, this unrest alongside others might be the reason behind the recent provocations by the Chinese side. The spokesperson of the foreign ministry of the country, Mao Ning, briefed that the Shakshkam Valley is under the Chinese occupation and any developments in the area are justified. She further explained China's rejection of India's criticism of CPEC, claiming it to be an economic cooperation and development corridor that doesn't interfere with the Kashmir issue. It's almost like justifying an illegal occupation in the front yard by reasoning it to be a financial gain for themselves. China needs to clear its basics. India has never changed its stance on the rejection of the China-Pakistan boundary agreement signed in 1963. It's time that India responds strictly against the Pakistani interference, as the beggar nation has no business other than terrorism and therefore no access to stable finances. Knowing it has always been a weak and almost ignorable enemy, it is now taking advantage of Nehru's mistake and selling the Indian land under its illegal occupation. When I say illegal, it is hard to forget our other neighbor who is currently struggling to find a leader. After killing more than 3 dozen Hindus in the past few days, it is now expecting the seating of the first formal prime minister after Sheikh Hasina through general elections in February this year. To secure its interests and other motives, China has reached out to a Sharia-supportive group, Jamaat. The group is said to have a significant influence on a considerable fraction of the population. As per the sources, China wants to create a balance during and after this vulnerable phase, and thereby protect its investments and personals. Jamaat and India don't share a good understanding, but similar efforts were being made by the Dr. S.J. Shankar when he met Tariq-e-Rahman, son of the deceased former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Khalida Zia from the BNP party. Both countries expect to create a stable atmosphere after Biden damned Asia with a scene that still needs fixing. Something else needs to be addressed as well. The Bangladeshi immigration racket in India, earlier handled by the special cell of the Delhi police, it is now being handed to the NIA following the directions of the Ministry of Home Affairs. The human tools used for various gains by the political leaders are now under the radar, and the agency has lodged an FIR to crack down on a bigger conspiracy run by organizations or even individuals alongside the money trail linked to it. The search is a part of a national objective to erase these anti-national forces and bringing peace. Other than the eradication of jihad from India, what's bigger than finances? Ending today's show, the Home Minister stresses that India will surpass Germany's GDP by next year, making it the world's third largest economy. The remark comes after PM Modi's appreciation of the predictability, political stability, and rising middle class purchasing power alongside other promising factors at the vibrant Gujarat Regional Conference in Rajkot. It's just after he became, I think, one of the few members from older generations to admire the creativity of the Gen Z in a public session on January 12th. So applauding the new generation, whom I also happen to represent. And yes, that's it for today. And remember, this is the evening show by The Explicit, running from Monday to Thursday. Good night.